After the Taliban swept Kabul, residents are desperate to flee Afghanistan's beleaguered capital. A mass exodus is underway in Kabul. And amid all of this chaos and mayhem at the airport, 5 people have lost their lives. The reason has not been ascertained yet, but the reports came after US Army fired to keep the crowd away. Karzai International Airport authorities have announced the suspension of all commercial flights. The closure of Kabul airspace also means that Indian flights will not be able to operate now. Through the statement, airport authorities have called on the people to avoid crowding the airport. Amid the chaos, the US troops fired shots into the air at Kabul airport today after the Taliban takeover of the country and the fall of Afghanistan's government. Thousands of Afghans crowded onto the tarmac in the hope of catching a flight out of the country. Scores of Afghans crowded the Kabul International Airport. There were some scuffles among people unable to get a place as departures were stopped. Another eyewitness video showed people shouting inside an Istanbul-bound flight that reportedly could not take off, urging the Taliban to allow Afghans and other nationals to leave the country. More than 60 nations have issued a joint statement saying Afghans and international citizens who want to leave Afghanistan must be allowed to depart. The US State Department added that airports and border crossings must remain open. It also added that those in positions of power and authority across Afghanistan bear responsibility and accountability for the protection of human life and property, and for the immediate restoration of security and civil order. The Afghan people deserve to live in safety, security, and dignity. The joint statement has been signed by countries including Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Qatar, and the United Kingdom. The US Embassy in Kabul suspended operations and warned Americans to shelter in place and not to try to get to the airport. According to a State Department official, almost all US Embassy personnel have relocated to a facility at the Hamid Karzai International Airport. The US has also secured Kabul's international airport to enable the safe departure of thousands by civilian and military flights. Several hundred employees of the US Embassy in Kabul have already been evacuated from Afghanistan. Accelerating evacuation efforts, the United States has sent 6,000 troops to the airport to fly out embassy personnel, as well as Afghan interpreters. Also, part of the departure plan are thousands of Afghans eligible for US special immigrant visas. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has played down America's hasty exit, as he still calls it, a successful mission.
Let's take a step back. This is manifestly not Saigon. We're working to make sure that our personnel are safe and secure. We're relocating the men and women of our embassy to a location at the airport. It's why the president sent in a number of forces to make sure that as we continue to draw down our diplomatic presence, we do it in a safe and orderly fashion.
UK troops have also arrived in Kabul to aid British nationals and diplomats still in the country. The European nations and the EU are also scrambling to evacuate their citizens and local staff from Kabul. In a tweet, French ambassador to Afghanistan, David Martinon, has showed himself in a helicopter leaving the heavily fortified Green Zone. France will also begin to airlift citizens from Kabul by tonight. Now, French citizens will be evacuated to a base in the United Arab Emirates. Germany has also shuttered its embassy in Kabul, and it is preparing to send military transport planes to evacuate as many Germans and local Afghan helpers as possible. People have appealed to German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Foreign Minister for an emergency visa program to help local staff who worked for them to leave Afghanistan. As a part of efforts to evacuate citizens of New Zealand, their government is sending a C-130 Hercules military transport plane to Afghanistan for 53 New Zealanders. Defence officials have said they plan for a month-long mission involving at least 40 military personnel tasked with servicing and protecting the plane.
In relation to Afghan nationals seeking to come to New Zealand, Cabinet has confirmed that we will continue to make every effort to support the repatriation of New Zealand citizens and permanent residents and immediate family members travelling with them and their dependents.
For more on this, our correspondent Anas Malik is joining us live from Kabul. Good evening to you, Anas. You have been closely monitoring the situation throughout. Take us through the latest details now that the Taliban have claimed victory.
Well, absolutely, Alison. I've been out on the roads. Today was day one when Kabul was overrun by the Taliban. And since then, we've been seeing that we've seen increased presence of the Afghan Taliban on the roads. The checkposts that were once controlled by the Afghan military are now being controlled by the Afghan Taliban. We're seeing them drive in the same vehicles that were being used by the Afghan Defense Security Forces. They've got municipality commissioners. They've got people who are there to address, but and they are, by and large, they are very agitated or aggressive when you try to speak to them. There is a general sense of fear in the residents. The shops were closed today, markets were closed today, children did not turn up to schools today. We saw lesser cars on the roads. There was traffic, not that there was not traffic, but there were no passengers. There were a lot of taxis, but there were no passengers on the roads for those taxis. So the people of Kabul or Afghanistan is cautious to respond to the Taliban takeover. We're seeing that because currently there is no established system that is there. So there is a lot of anarchy, there is a lot of chaos, there's a lot of panic on the roads, and most of them, people are trying to flee abroad. People are trying to leave Afghanistan. The roads today, all of the roads today led to the airport. More than 10,000 people were there at the airport, and the Kabul International Airport has been closed for the next 2 days for any sorts of commercial traffic. Late last night, a Turkish airline commercial aircraft that was scheduled to take about 313 passengers, more than 1,000 of them flocked in, and they tried to go to Turkey, flee away to Turkey in order to find a safe refuge. So that can this can actually very well define the magnitude of the human tragedy over here, the magnitude of insecurity over here within the people as the Taliban have overrun. The Taliban are trying to give a semblance of normalcy, but clearly not all is well, at least not on the roads of Kabul, and which is the fear is clearly visible. Alison?
Now, you have touched on it. The Taliban are talking about having an inclusive government and wanting peaceful relations globally. Now, these conversations were put on hold. What information do you have on this?
Well, we've seen a lot of mixed reactions coming in from We've seen a lot of mixed reactions coming in from the government, from different governments. Tomorrow we'd see the Russian ambassador meeting the Afghan Taliban. We're expecting the Taliban leadership from that in Doha to arrive in Kabul sometime later today. The Afghan presidential palace is where, what we understand, the announcement to the change in system from a republic to the Emirat would be made. The flag would be changed as well. This is what we have learned from our Taliban sources, that they will be doing so. We're expecting the Taliban Amir, Mullah Hebatullah Akhundzada, to make a public appearance as well. But if I talk to you about this, the functionality of the government infrastructure today, the Taliban have appointed a new commissioner or a new interim chief for the Ministry of Interior. So that can actually explain that how swiftly do they want this change in power. There is a committee that has been formed by former President Hamid Karzai, which comprises of former President Hamid Karzai, former Chief Executive Abdullah, and the former Prime Minister Gulbuddin Hekmatyar. But for that committee to come into function, that would take quite some time, at least for now. And as I said, for people to be accustomed to this new normal, that would take at least some days. One thing that was very interesting today that I saw on the roads of Kabul, there was almost zero women presence. The women in Kabul are known to be robust, are known to be fearless, are known to be those who would step in the face of tyranny and continue regardless. But today I did not see many women out on the roads. Even if they were accompanied by their male hires, by their male counterparts. Somebody from the family would accompany them on the road. That is a departure from what we saw yesterday or day before. I've been here for the past 3 weeks now. I've been reporting and I've been seeing women in their significant long coats and the hijab, and they would continue with their daily routine. So when we spoke to the Taliban on the roads guarding the checkpoints, they said that for now they have not issued any such directives. However, they would want the women to be out with any of their male hires. Yes, Alison.
Anas, thank you very much for bringing us the latest details coming out of Kabul. Now, our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, is joining us live with more details. Good evening to you, Siddhant. Now, talking on the escape of Ashraf Ghani, apparently this was not expected even by those who are closest to him.
Well, yes, Alison, the developments which have happened in Afghanistan is something that has caught everyone by off guard. In fact, I've been getting a lot of messages, even as I speak, of various stakeholders involved talking about the situation on the ground. I'm standing right now in front of the Afghan embassy here in Delhi. There is a lot of security personnel present here. But one thing is for certain, that the flag at the Afghan embassy is of the Afghan government, of the of Afghanistan, not of Taliban. But largely India's priority is to bring back its nationals from the country. We have been talking about it for last few days, about evacuation process, and this is something that has been an ongoing process. As of now, on the ground, it is very difficult to bring back the civilians, because we have seen the visuals coming from Kabul, the devastating, in fact, visuals from the Kabul airport that show that it's almost impossible to do any evacuation as of now until situation is brought under control. But also the big question is of legitimacy for Taliban. We have seen murmurs going around, the statement by the Chinese as well. But the next big thing which is going to happen in next few hours. That is the United Nations Security Council meeting led by India. India is the chair of United Nations Security Council, and this is the second meeting of Afghanistan which India is chairing this month. India already has chaired a meeting on 6th of August, in which we saw the world community speaking in one voice that Taliban should not come through violence in Kabul, and that is a message that remains as well. But clearly it's an emboldened Taliban, a Taliban which sees itself as the victors in this 20-year-long war. This is a major geopolitical change which is happening in the region, in India's backyard, and of course there will be repercussions, ramifications here in India as well, geopolitical ramifications. There hasn't been any statement by New Delhi as of now on the situation which is happening on the ground, but do expect that the UNSC India as the chair will comment on the developments.
Right, Siddhant, now on this, with the upcoming UNSC meeting, China has become the first country to recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government. What is the significance of this move by China, not just for Afghanistan, but as you were mentioning there, for the larger region?
Well, it's the recognition of Taliban that is on top of the mind of the regional countries. Well, there are reports emerging, but there is obviously not a domino effect in terms of recognition by various countries. Until there is a clarity on the situation, it is very difficult to basically be certain on the situation on the ground. We know that India and Taliban don't have a very good relationship, given the fact that what happened in 90s, especially hijacking hijacking of the Indian Airlines IC-814. And since then, there hasn't been any conversation. There has been, of course, reports saying that India has been in touch with Taliban. But if you look at the situation right now emerging, it's a situation of chaos, confusion in Kabul, in Afghanistan, and it will take pretty much 2 to 3 weeks to settle things down and have some kind of semblance when it comes to the governance.
Right, Siddhan, thank you very much for bringing us all the latest on the developing story in Kabul.
WION, now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.